Well, good morning again, and it's a Tuesday, and we're going to do another little look at the island. Now, the last few weeks I've been looking at stuff. If you were walking on the island, you might see, you might stop, you might engage. Today, I'm going to kind of walk you around the island. And by the way, if you ever do this on your own, low tide, not high tide, low tide. It just makes sure you're safe, seriously. Most of what I'm going to do today, though, is going to be a walk on the northwest side of the island. And more stuff shows over there. And what I'm looking at today is the history of the island, the geological history of the island. And this is going to take us back 300 million years. But before we do that, we have to understand what I think of as the context for the island, which is the river. I mean, you can't have an island if you don't have a river, or at least a lake. And what I want to look at is the Miramichi River first. And it's an impressive water system. Yes, it's known for salmon and all the fishing that goes on. But when we look at it as what it does to the landscape of New Brunswick and actually the formation of New Brunswick, along with other geological processes, I want to kind of give you a thought from William Ganong, whom I am deeply indebted to, and I think every person, well, in New Brunswick especially, but I would say Canada, should really be aware of Ganong and the science he brought to this province. It's very underrated in that sense. But Ganong said that the Miramichi watershed, not just the river, but the entire watershed, is probably the most primitive or original watershed in the province. So we're going way back in time, but quite honestly, and I've tried to do research in this, and there's very, very little. Most of the research that has been done is post-glacial. What I really need to understand is, what does the original river or rivers look like? And when you look at that, especially the channels, and I do not know, I'm sure the channels have been dragged, but the thing is, they were probably a lot smaller than what you see now. And erosion has taken its work to enlarge the river. The watershed itself empties 25% of the province. Now, mostly the Miramichi Highlands. But when you think of all of the little lakes and springs and creeks and brooks and rivers that take all that snow that's out there right now and all the rain that's going to come down constantly and bring it right past the island. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing the movement of water through 25% of this province. I find that amazing. That encompasses 13,000 square kilometers flowing on both sides of the river. 13,000 square kilometers. The estuary itself, which begins at the east end of the island and works its way out, is 300 square kilometers alone. You don't see that if you're up on the Centennial Bridge, and you can, well, you're supposed to be looking at the road, but if you're looking, quick look either way, 300 square kilometers, but think of how far it is from the bridge back to the island, and then from the bridge out to Fox Island. I mean, that's a lot of water, and yet that's what it is. The most amazing thing I find, and I got this through some studies that Mirac did, the pH level of water Now, it's testing from alkaline to acid. Acid water is not good, but alkaline water is no better. You can't drink either one in the extreme. The river, over quite some time that they've been measuring it, runs almost at 7. And 7 is considered neutral pH, 7. Sometimes it runs a little alkaline, sometimes it runs a little acidic, but not that much. And given 25% of the profits, and given what is out there working its way into the river system, that's pretty good. That's a very clean river in the 21st century. And I think we should be proud of having that river and honor it, quite honestly. I mean, this is the Miramichi because of that river. The whole thing is 250 kilometers in length when you put it together. That's huge. And that includes the north and southwest. So the thing is, when you look at the island, it is, in a sense, the child of the river. The river has created it. And I would love to know what the original looked like. I'm fascinated by that. Now, if we go to the river itself, and we're going to kind of walk on the northwest side. The best way to do this, if you're going to do it alone, or I'll take you there, go down the main trail to the Trail of Good Cheer, which takes you to the northwest, and you will come out pretty much at the sandstone cliffs there. And when you look at the cliffs, I mean, it's a nondescript rock. It's not granite that you can look at or, you know, anything else. It's just sandstone. And what it is part of the, well, what's called the Eastern Lowlands. And that goes from Miscou Island to Grand Lake and over to Cape Tormentine. We're part of that. It's a lowland because basically you have the highlands and then the St. John Valley and then all of the Fundy Mountains as well. So we're in there. And originally that lowland at one point stretched all the way to Newfoundland. It's called the Maritime Basin. PEI is simply part of that. And again, everything pretty much underlain by sandstone, 300 million, give or take a year. 300 million years ago, it didn't look like anything that it looks like today. We were 3 degrees north of the equator. Think of that. Think of that in February. 3 degrees north of the equator. There was no Atlantic Ocean. We were butt up against Africa. And when you look at the red mud and the red sandstones of PEI and Nova Scotia, and even go down to, you know, the Sackville area and stuff like that, the soils have been sampled and they're virtually identical to the Atlas Mountains in Morocco, which is where we were with no Atlantic Ocean. And then the Atlantic Ocean started opening up, which is fascinating itself. If you go on YouTube, or you can find stuff as well on the net, but YouTube, go to Iceland, and Iceland is actually breaking in half because it sits on the mid-Atlantic ridge, which created the Atlantic Ocean. And part of it is coming with us as we head somewhat southwest. Sometime in the very long future, we're going to meet Australia. But Europe and everything is going the other way. And of course, at that point, you're going to see the Pacific Ocean close. That's plate tectonics. Don't worry about it. We won't be here. When you look at some of the things of 300 million years ago, and this would have taken place right here where we are, there were 3 main trees, if you will, not like today's trees, but calamites and sigillariae and chordates. And they were like the white pines of today. They were very big, 100, 30 meters, 30 meters, 100 feet. And the calamites in particular, you can still find their relatives. They're called horsetails, and I'll probably do something about this in the future. The sigillarias, actually, you can still find some of the relatives, and I show this on the island too. Club mosses and things like that actually were these big trees at one point. And the chordates, they think, were pretty much a proto-conifer. So the spruces, the white pines and stuff like that trace their lineage. What I want to show you though, this is a fossil I have, and I'm going to just put it up. I have to, it would have been growing like that. And it virtually looks like a horsetail today. This is 300 million years old, by the way. It's sandstone. I'm not going to tell you where it came from, but in New Brunswick. And it's three-dimensional. I mean, most fossils are not. And the weird story about this is that I found at a cliff a rock that had fallen down, and I noticed there were fossil imprints. Wow, terrific. I have it in the basement. And I did my thing for a couple hours, and on the way back, I happened to notice that. Oh, you know, getting a three-dimensional fossil, when does that happen? I put that in my basement. And it was months later, I happened to be looking at both of them, and I noticed that one of the imprints in the larger rock exactly fit that. This had fallen out of the rock. You don't usually get that. So this is very special to me. But that's what we were looking at. And of course, we're talking sandstone. We're talking sand, which gets compressed and glued together, if you will. We find the sandstone all over. I mean, I am sitting on it right now. You're sitting on it right now. When you look, though, to kind of get an idea, I've read reports, and think of you're on the northwest shore, and you're looking at the island. You're looking at maybe a 6-foot cliff or something like that. The sandstone might go down another 100 feet or so. Think of that. That's a lot of sand. But then go to French Fort Cove. Walk up the trails, the Fish and Creighton trails. You're on sandstone. You go up to the way in the back there. You're on sandstone. So from maybe 100 feet below sea level to however hundreds of feet you are up there, that was all sand. And a lot of it was compressed underwater. Building up, building up, building up, building up, and then water receded, and then it got compressed, and it's the geological forces.